Hey guys, here's the too long didn't watch version. I'll talk about 20 minutes on metabolic adaptation, on set points, and on reverse dieting. And what I mean by all that, here's the gist. Sometimes the math doesn't quite add up, right? You're eating at a deficit. You're eating less calories than your maintenance calories, or you're eating more than your maintenance calories, depending on whether you want to lose weight or gain weight. Yet nothing's changing. Right, the scale's not changing. Your body fat, your body composition doesn't seem to be changing, and you're wondering what's going on. Well, two things. Number one, sometimes you have to eat 10% to 15% of your total caloric intake less in order to lose weight because of metabolic adaptation. Your body likes where it is. It doesn't want to move. It's going to sacrifice other things in order to keep you alive, like your metabolism, your thyroid function. I talk a little bit about that. On the flip side, if you're trying to gain weight, sometimes for the same reasons, similar reasons anyway, you need to eat 10%, 15% more in order to see changes in the surplus, right? With that being said, even after you've eaten, in the case of weight loss, 10 to 15% less, and you continue to drop those calories, now you're down to like 50% less, maybe over the course of a year, and you're not losing any weight, what's going on there? Well, that's when I talk about reverse dieting, which is basically a fix to your health, essentially. But in this case, your metabolism. Fixing your metabolism because you've ground it into the dust. You need to get it back to a semi-normal level so that you can continue your progress. One thing I didn't mention is remember your goals, remember your motivation, remember why you set your goals in the first place. You might not necessarily need to get down to your high school weight. You might not necessarily need that six-pack. Remember what's driving you. Remember why you're doing this to yourself. And if you've examined that and you're still cool with that and you still want to hit the gas and get to your goal, whatever it is, fine. But be safe about it. Consider concepts like reverse dieting. If you're stuck on a plateau, watch the rest of this video. Also read the description. I'll put some links in there to kind of I don't explain things very well sometimes, so I'll link to some people who do, and you can kind of see where I'm getting some of this information. All right, guys, stay tuned. Hey guys, Rob Shoecraft here with Three Storm Fitness, and I want to talk to you today, kind of an extension of the last video I did for the Zero to Burrito Part 3 video, where I was talking, kind of really went into detail on recommended nutritional practices. Again, focusing on the big picture stuff, shelving all the sexy little optimization tweaks that everybody's so interested in, myself included, but saving those for later when you've already established a really solid foundation. So I talked about different simple changes, really behavior-based changes to your diet, substituting, finding out the low-hanging fruit in your diet by keeping a log for a week, and then slowly replacing one of those crappy nutrition habits with a good nutrition habit. And over time, you've sort of locked in the behavior. You started learning skills of managing your diet and learning how to prep accordingly, and more than likely seeing positive results along the way. I also talked about this 4-phase approach for those who really want to, I guess, get sophisticated with things, that I recommend just based on my own experience and research. If you're interested in that, go check that video out. But one thing I left out was concepts of weight set points, metabolic adaptation, which those two kind of go hand in hand, and something called reverse dieting. And I want to talk about that today because it is really important. Dieting, I talked about how you want to treat a diet as an experiment to find out what works for you, what you like, what you don't like, and then kind of pluck those things, start to kind of more or less prune your system to get to a point where you have something that's sustainable and effective. But I left out all the stuff about going into extended caloric deficits and everything, because number one, the video was getting really long, and number two, I'm sort of putting a lot of faith in, I believe that there's a lot of great either cheap or free information out there online for anybody who really wants to, with some patience and diligence, to get the job done with the information that's readily available. That being said, there's a lot of great sources like that TDEE calculator I was talking about, and I use Avatar Nutrition, which is only $10 a month for me. I'm not using it at the moment. I'm about as fat as I've been in the last 2 years, but that's a different video. I need to get back into it. There's a lot of things. Okay, I'm done talking about that. But anyways, very, very valuable resources that more or less tell you what to eat, but you still have to pay attention to that thing, especially when you're trying to lose weight. Gain weight as well, but when people are trying to lose weight or lose body fat, they're trying to change their body composition. When you're in the deficit side, things tend to get dangerous depending on how you handle it. So that's what I want to talk about, not just from a danger perspective, but also from really achieving your goals. So when you, let me give an example. And this is one I've seen from a lot of people, a lot of my clients, but also just talking to people in general. You know, you've heard the whole thing, and I've said it, and it is true for the most part, that it's all about calories in, calories out. You have to eat less in order to lose weight. You have to consume less calories. Now, we can talk about macro splits. I've talked ad nauseum about protein. I still maintain that it's extremely important and needs to be part of the equation. Okay, keep that in your mind. But there does come a point where progress stalls, and it stalls for what might seem like it makes no sense whatsoever, right? And you begin to question: is it really about calories in, calories out? And there are a lot of extra variables and things, but again, we're focusing on the big picture here. So if let's say you're one of the few people in the grand scheme of Western society who has actually more or less determined what your BMR, what your maintenance caloric intake is for the day. In other words, what it takes for you to just maintain your current body composition based on your daily activities, including exercise. And let's say it's 2,000 calories. And you've decided that you want to start leaning out. You want to start losing body fat, hopefully maintaining as much muscle as possible. Most people don't even get into that. They just want to lose weight. But let's just say maybe you're a bodybuilder, okay, or you're getting ready for the beach, and you want to keep some of that muscle because you're proud of it, and you know it looks cool, and you like being strong and all those other great things. But you want to lose some of that fat. That's great. Nothing wrong with that. So you start trimming off your calories. You get down to 1,800, right? 1,800 calories. Nothing else seems to really change in terms of what you're doing. You start losing some weight, okay? Then you keep kind of knocking it back slowly. You're doing all the right things. You knock it back to, say, 1,700, then 1,600. And all of a sudden, everything just stops. And it might have stopped at 1,800. Or it might not have even shifted at 2,000 calories, right? Or, sorry, at 1,900. You know, so everybody responds differently. So keep that in mind. Number one, what works for your buddy at the gym is not necessarily going to work for you. But the moral of the story of this particular example is that progress has plateaued, even though you continue to trim calories off. So let's talk about what's going on there a little bit. There's something called a set point, and that basically is what your body wants to hang on to in order to keep you alive. Your body doesn't really care how cut you are. It just wants to make sure that your heart keeps beating, okay? So it's all about survival. And your body has a certain weight, we'll just call it a set point that it feels comfortable with in order to keep that survival going. So depending on how you respond, it's gonna be different points in the deficit where that plateau happens. And I think I talked about before how just your BMR is where you burn the most of the calories. Keeping your temperature, staying at 98.6, that takes a lot of calories to do that. Keeping all your autonomous organs functioning, your heart beating, obviously you don't have to think about making your heart beat. All that stuff burns the majority of the calories from the day. Everybody wants to think it's like, it's how often you spend on the treadmill, but no, it's really most of your calories. We're talking like 60 to 70% are burned from just being alive. So what happens is when you go into a deficit, your body wants to keep you alive. Okay, so what it's going to do is start sacrificing some of those things that, if you've ever gone into a diet and you realize that you're not as quick, like as physically snappy as you were a couple months ago, or you're having more trouble getting to sleep, not only because you're hungry and perhaps miserable, but your body just doesn't want to sleep right. You're getting maybe more anxiety over certain things. All these things are related to what's going on in your system. So basically your body wants to keep you at a certain weight for survival's sake, so it starts sacrificing functionality. Thyroid function's a huge one, and everything that rolls into that, your endocrine system and everything. So you start just noticing that you're not as polished as a human being as you were previously. Not only that, but now you're not losing weight anymore. So now you're just miserable and stuck on a plateau. What the heck's going on? Well, that's what's going on. Your body is pretty hell-bent on staying where it is for survival's sake, and it's willing to sacrifice some of that autonomous functionality in order to keep you there, to keep you alive. So a couple things to take away from that. Number one is that it could take a pretty big shift in a deficit or a surplus, both ways, can take. So let's say your maintenance calories or your calories to lose that you need to lose weight, your deficit strategy calls for a deficit of 200 calories a day. Well, it might take more than that to really swing it, especially if you're stuck on a plateau. You might have to drop it back another 15%, up to 15%, in either losing weight or gaining weight. In other words, you have to really hit the gas to get it there. And oftentimes that gets people there. Now you want to be careful with that because, again, you're sacrificing a lot of your body's natural functions in order to get that snappiness we talked about. But also, you might find that even after that 10 to 15%, you might have dropped from 2,000 calories to 1,800 to 1,600 to 1,400 to 1,200. Now you're at 1,000 calories. You're absolutely hating life, and you're still not losing weight. What's going on there? Well, you have basically destroyed your metabolic function and your nervous system and all these other things. I shouldn't say destroyed, but it can happen. You've sacrificed the quality of that in order to keep hitting the gas, to keep dropping weight. And your body will eventually, you could, if you just don't eat anything, you will start to lose weight. But from a sanity's perspective, from a safety perspective, you can't just keep doing that, and your body will stall. That's why you'll be at 2,000 calories, right? And you're now at a 1,000 calorie deficit at sitting at 1,000 calories. Maybe it took you a couple months to get there, because you do want to do it gradually. But now you're sitting there and still nothing's happening. You're still not losing weight, even though you're eating 1,000 calories less. It does not make any sense. The reason that happens is because now you've sacrificed so much. Your body is just hanging on to that, right? And your metabolism is just down to like nothing. So that's where reverse dieting comes in. Now, I'm not an expert on reverse dieting, but I do know that a lot of people who are experts, folks who help, physique models and bodybuilders fix things and keep them out of these danger zones. Although just getting down to 3% body fat, I don't know if too many safe ways to really do that. But in order to minimize damage, there's some folks who make a living out of that research. And what is often recommended is if you go with, let's say, a 2-month bout of progressively taking your calories down, going into a further and further deficit as you lose weight, every now and then you need to add calories back in and fix yourself. All those things we talked about that you've been sacrificing, your thyroid function, your metabolism, etc. You need to start fixing that. It's kind of like with, for those who might have some familiarity with like a conventional progression model for lifting weights. You can't just go balls out every week forever and ever and ever and ever and continue to see progress. There are some, like, I guess if we're talking, I always get off track here, but if you're talking like the conjugate sequencing or something like that, there are some training templates that sort of allow for that, but it's not an apples to apples comparison. For most folks, what you got to do, for most progressions, you got to build up, taper back, build up, taper back. It's like any skill that you have on the face of the earth. If you look at your progression, if you're measuring it, you come up, go down, come up, go down, come up, go down. And you got to be cool with that roller coaster. The dieting's the same way. You're going down. You got to come back up a little bit. Go down, come up, down. You got to ride that wave, right? You got to roll in with the homies here. So that's a little, what movie is that? Clueless. Yes. Okay. So, what I'm saying is, if you are stuck on a plateau, you've been trying to lose weight, and you've been doing everything right, you're tracking you know exactly how much you're eating, you got the perfect macro split, and you're still stuck, you should look into adding 5 to 10% calories back in and eat more to lose weight. Eat more. Most of those calories are going to come from carbs. Eat more and keep doing that. Keep adding. And most likely you're not if you do it at a gradual process, you're not going to gain weight. You're going to kind of stay at that maintenance weight. And once you're fixed, once you start to put on just a little bit, then start doing the deficit again. Okay? Now, I'm not going to go into the details of how you do that, but that is generally how it's done. If you are really struggling with this, I do recommend, I talked about Avatar Nutrition before. I might have even mentioned it in this video already. My phone keeps breaking, so I've had to shoot this 3 times. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. But you could try Avatar Nutrition. I don't make any money from it. It's just something that I know works really well. And it'll tell you when to do that. It kind of pays attention to your progress and adjusts things on the fly. And it has reverse dieting mechanisms in it to fix your metabolism, to fix your endocrine system and all that stuff to the best that a little computer program can. As long as you're following it, you can build your progress back up, and then so you can come back down, right? Or go back up, or however you want to define it. It works the same way. If you're trying to gain weight, right, and you're stuck, I mean, everybody does have a certain sort of lean mass potential that you're just not going to get that much bigger. You might be near your peak as a human being of how much you can carry. That's a whole other video. Don't worry too much about that. But if you're rail thin, you cannot gain weight, and you've been eating, sometimes you got to eat 15% more than what the calculator that you're using might say to really hit the gas and blow through that set point to deal with that metabolic adaptation. So that being said, I just kind of wanted to make you aware that if you're stuck on a plateau, you might just need, especially with weight loss, you might just need to eat a little bit more gradually. Train your body to get back to what it, how it functions normally, functions safely, in order to start working on your progress again of weight loss. So if you're listening to if you're with a nutrition coach and they say, well, this is what you got to do, you got to eat more, listen to what they're talking about, because they probably know. Now, I also want to just kind of tack on a couple extra things. And I'll link to a couple studies. I'll link to a couple of good articles that will explain things a little more elegantly than I am, because I know this video is kind of all over the place. But things like resistance training, which is, again, a staple of the zero to burrito thing. It should be a staple of anybody's fitness program. Resistance training, high protein, or at least moderate, an adequate, we'll call it, amount of protein. If you check out that protein video, if you want to know what that really means. Not going too crazy with cardio. It can actually have a detrimental effect on things, not only your knees, but depending on what mode of cardio you're using, but just hammering out those proverbial death marches on the treadmill over and over and over again might not be doing you any favors when it comes to the realm of your health of your metabolism. So those are just some things to keep in mind. Stay with your compound training. Don't go too crazy. Don't diet in a deficit for too long. Again, it's going to vary from person to person. Sometimes you might want to do it for a couple weeks, then creep back up. Sometimes it's going to be a couple months. It might even be a year for somebody. They're experiencing progress for a year, and then all of a sudden they hit that plateau. But eventually you will plateau, and reverse dieting is usually the answer, as long as you're doing everything else right. Okay, so just wanted to kind of slam that into your head, that even though it doesn't necessarily make sense, it's counterintuitive to think that you got to eat more to weigh less. But sometimes that is the case, and that is wise, because, again, all those things I talked about, your body likes where it is for survival's sake, so it's sacrificing things like your metabolism in order to keep the lights on. Hopefully that makes sense. I hope I did an okay job explaining that. Like I said, there are plenty of things I left out on purpose, but I will link to some articles if you're interested in learning more about that. If you have any questions, or you want to chime in on personal experience, please let me know. Put it in the comments. Please subscribe to this video. Stay tuned for more Zero to Burrito videos, as well as home gym tweaks and whatever else, pants reviews, whatever else I talk about on this channel. All right, guys, thanks a lot for tuning in. Have a great day.